Chavre, how are you? I hope everyone is gesund, stark, und freilich, begashmus und beruchnis. I hope everyone is healthy, strong, and happy physically and spiritually. Today is a very great day. First of all, it's Erev Shabbos Kodesh Parshas Eikev. Today is Yutes Menachemov, the Yortzeit of my father. It's his 62nd Yortzeit. And Chof Ov is the 80th Yortzeit Hilula of the Rebbe's father, Rabbi Levi Yitzchok Schneerson, Harav HaKodsh, who was a Goyen in Nigle and in Primis Atera. He was a Kabbalist, etc. Great tzaddik who had unbelievable Mesiras Nefesh, self-sacrifice for Yiddishkeit. So Rabbi Levi Yitzchok Schneerson, his merit should bring his blessings in all areas of everyone's life, and hopefully to bring Mashiach. My father was a Chassid, Reb Avraham Doiv, Reb Moshe Tzvi Wiener. He should have an Aliyas HaNeshama, und uns beten als Guts for the ganze Mishpacha for Klal Yisrael. And we'll speak about my father, the Rebbe's father, who was a tzaddik, and this week's Parsha. Since the war started, we also added tzedakah. So let's start with tzedakah, gdei tzedakah, shemakareves esagula. This tzedakah and all our good deeds should bring Mashiach now. We'll say the prayer that we're all hoping for, which we say in Shemoneh Esrei 3 times a day, and that is the bracha of, you guessed it, Tchias HaMesim. So we speak over him, Mechalkel Chayim B'Chesed, Mechayim Mesim B'Rachmim Rabim, Semech Neiflim V'Reifechel, Matarasurim V'Kayim V'Noseli, Sheinei Ofer. He sustains the living with loving kindness, resurrects the dead with great mercy, supports the falling, heals the sick, releases the bound, and fulfills his trust to those who sleep in the dust. Michamecha Bal Gvuris Midei Melech, Melech Meimis Mechayim Atzmei Yeshua, V'Ne'eman Atalach His Mesim Baruch Atah Hashem, Mechaya HaMesim. You, who is like you, mighty one, and who can be compared to you, King, who brings death and restores life, and causes deliverance to spring forth. You are trustworthy to revive the dead. Blessed are you, Lord, who revives the dead. Interestingly, in Hayom Yom, and this is going to be something we're going to speak about today, he says a Hasidic interpretation of reviving the dead, a resurrection, which every single one of us experiences to a certain extent, is when you learn a concept in the Torah Chassidus, it brings a warmth and vitality to cold intellect. And he writes over there's nothing as dead as cold intellect. And when you take a godly concept and you bring it into your mind, and it brings an excitement, that's reviving of the dead. And today that's what we're going to speak about, passion and fire. So we gave tzedakah, we said a prayer. Now let's talk about this week's Parsha, where in this week's Parsha we see the concept of a fire, and there's a negative concept of a fire, and there's a positive concept of a fire. We'll start with a very famous Sikha of the Rebbe, in Chelik Beis. This week the Rebbe talks about the beginning of one's descent. Where does the problem start? And he says, and he talks about the idea that we say, the beginning, Chatzi Refuah, Yidiyas HaMachla Chatzi Refuah. If you have a correct diagnosis, that's the beginning of the healing. You know, today it's a very big thing. I got a diagnosis. And people are very happy. Hopefully, amen, all the diagnoses are usually good ones. Or minor things which everyone can live with till 120. So it's very important to get a diagnosis. Sometimes the worry, the lack of closure, or the concern, the worry, could drive you crazy. Whoever's been through experiences with doctors and tests and waiting for results of tests, Hashem, nobody should go through any worries like this. So when you get a diagnosis, and Baruch Hashem, it's nothing major, you give a great thanks to Hashem. My mother used to say, we got off, just Hashem wanted to bring a bit of fear of us to realize that He's the one who's in control. Health is in His hands. So sometimes Hashem wants you to get a bit scared because it makes you more aware of Hashem. He'll say an extra kapitel to Him. You'll give some more tzedakah. But Yitzchak, with the Shrek Alein, all the Eibishter wanted was you should get a bit serious or seriouser. So therefore you have to go through that experience where you had this fear for a time being. So in any case, in the Sichen Chili Beis, the Rebbe discusses where is the beginning of one's descent spiritually. Where does it all start from? So since once you understand you have a correct diagnosis, that's how the healing could begin. So first you have to realize, where did the problem start? And I'll tell you what the Rebbe says. I'm going to paraphrase it in a different language. I would say that in today's climate, we have to say it all starts from being secularized. We've become too secularized, secular, etc. But that's a big word. How does it manifest itself? So one of the manifestations of becoming secularized is you look at the world. You look at the world and you get scared of the world. Now this is so relevant right now in what we're living through with Eretz Yisrael. The hundreds of thousands and millions of people worldwide that have been protesting against Eretz Yisrael. So it could get scary. Because if we look at it and we're measuring things with the naked physical eye, so it seems like we are the minority. We're less than 1% of the world. We shouldn't be here in general. And this is what the Rebbe says, is we teach from the Pasuk, we learn from the Pasuk, where it says, HaMeilichacha b'midbar hagodol v'hanoira nochosh soraf v'akriv. Seeing the Sicha and Chili Beis, where the Rebbe also explains Tzimoyim asher ein moyim, but I'm not going to get into that. I'll go the previous words. First of all, the Rebbe says the problem starts. So 1 second. The Pasuk is telling us good news, that the Eibishter guided us, took care of us lovingly in the great awesome desert. So we had the Eibishter, and the Eibishter took care of us with the man, with the Yaakov, with everything in a totally miraculous way, and it wasn't a problem. But now let's talk about what does it mean in our service of Hashem. What's the problem? The problem is you look at a desert and you say that the desert is great, called translated also wilderness. What's a wilderness? A makam shein by Adam. Adam is atam kriyim Adam. That means it's a place which is devoid of civilization. So you look at the world, the secular world, the Gentile world, the evil, so to speak, and you say it's bigger than us. We're small. We're the minority. So first of all, you're scared because you said, Midbar HaGadol. Who are we, B'chlal? All the world has to do is take a sneeze and we're finished. Goodbye. That's what you could think. Because if we look at it in the physical sense, we're tiny, less than 1%. So that's number one. We'll never be able to beat the world if we measure it in the physical sense. But then the Rebbe says it's not only the problem that you look at it, HaGadol, they're more powerful than you. You say, V'hanoira. They're awesome. Awesome means that if you go with the attitude of just HaGadol, that it's greater, you might say, let them stay in their territory, I'll stay in my territory. I'm not going to try to engage the world. I'm not going to try to transform the world. I'm not going to try to elevate the world. I'm not going to try to bring benefit to the world because the world is so much powerful than me. But what I will do is try to stay in my own small, tiny inch, my own small, tiny corner. And over there I'll be safe. No, once you start thinking that the world has powers and forces that are greater than you, then you come to the next descent and you think V'hanoira, that's terrifying, it's awesome, which means they're going to defeat you even in your tiny corner. So it's not only bad enough it started with HaGadol, they started looking at things and measuring it with the physical eye. Next thing what comes after that is V'hanoira. You think there's no chance for you to be Jewish at home even in a shul and even in the Beis HaKnesses. And then comes Nochosh. Nochosh is a snake. Then comes Soraf, a serpent, which is also translated fiery serpent. And then comes Scorpion. And over here the Rebbe explains that technically speaking, a Nochosh has a poison, which is a hot poison. And from there comes Saraf, the fiery serpent, which means that it burnt out any positive excitement, any positive feelings, enthusiasm towards the good things. And then we come to a Akev, a scorpion, which its poison is cold. In other words, there's 3 levels over here itself. First, it starts off that you get excited. You get excited by a convertible, you get excited by a Cadillac, you get excited by a hot dog, you get excited by a bottle of beer, etc., etc. You get excited, and that's what Nachash means. The poison of the Nachash means that you start having an excitement in matters of this world. Then comes Saraf, the excitement of the negative things, like we say, crimes of passion. You got so passionate about the negative things that it burnt out, it consumed any passion and excitement that you had previously for good things. Hashem Yirachem. But then comes the worst level, which is Akev, which its poison is cold, which means indifference, apathy. That's even worse than Nachash, which means excitement. And this is what I want to focus on a bit. There's a famous Sikha, the Rebbe, in Chelek Aleph, I'm sure we spoke about it, where the Rebbe speaks about Dam and Tzfardea. And he talks about the 10 Makkahs, the 10 plagues, and he says that there's an order, a sequence of how you break out of Egypt. How do you break out of your prison? How do you break out of your decadence? How do you break out of your involvement and immersion in things that are negative? Your addictions, whatever it is. So the first step, the Rebbe says in that Sikh in Chelek Aleph, Va'era, is Dam. Dam means that we brought blood into the Nile, into the rivers, into the waters of Egypt. The waters of Egypt means the indifference to the right things, to the good things, because water represents coldness. Dam is blood. Blood is hot-blooded. We bring in an excitement, get excited, bring in the passion about the right things. And then the Rebbe says comes the next plague, which is the frogs, that the Gemara says, well, enough for the frogs, that they're amphibians, creatures of the water, and they jumped into the ovens. So what does that represent? That represents calm down, relax about those things that are not good. What's the big deal? It's just a pizza. It's just sports. It doesn't matter. It's not so important. Relax, Max. Take a chill pill, Phil. So the Rebbe in the Sikha in Chelek Aleph says that even though technically we could have a discussion what comes first, turning away from the negative, Surmera, or Asay Tov, turning on the good. Do good, turn away from bad. Which comes first? So even though technically the pasuk says Surmera, turn away from evil and then do good, the Rebbe says over there that the Baal Shem Tov taught us that we start with Asay Tov, do good, do good. Now let's get back to this over here. What's worse? A person who, we say, he plays hard and he studies hard. No problem. He plays hard, at least he has an excitement and a passion, and then this excitement and this passion could be turned around, and it can be used in a positive way. But a person who's cold and indifferent, he's going to remain cold and indifferent. It's a lower descent. That's why the level of Akev is lower than Nachash. That's what the Rebbe is saying in the Sikh over here. First is the level of Nachash. You're excited about the wrong things. But the poison is a hot poison. The poison, the negative about it is that you're excited about the wrong things. But a worse level, a lower level, is Akev, but the poison is called indifference. You're numb. And over here we have a famous story. I don't know if it's the Alter Rebbe or the Tzemach Tzedek. I said the story before, where there was a child who had strayed from the right path, and the father came to the Alter Rebbe or the Tzemach Tzedek and asked him for a blessing. So the Tzemach Tzedek or the Alter Rebbe said, call him, tell him to come see me. The son had their cherz for his father, so he decided to see the Alter Rebbe or the Tzemach Tzedek, and he came there. And the Alter Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek, asked him, what's worse, a fast horse running in the wrong direction or a slow horse running in the wrong direction? And the boy, the child, was wise. He didn't answer. He wanted to see what the Rebbe is going to answer. And the Rebbe answered it. And he said, on the one hand, you would think it's worse when it's the fast horse running in the wrong direction. Because every single second is getting further and further away. But the truth is, no. What's worse is the slow horse running in the wrong direction. Because the fast horse running in the wrong direction, one day we'll be able to turn around that horse, and then it'll be running in the right direction. It'll be a fast horse running in the right direction. But if it's a slow horse, even when we turn it around, it's still going to remain a slow horse. And these words of the Alter Rebbe, where the Tzemach Tzedek inspired this young man so much that he became Baal Tshuva, etc., etc. He just needed to hear that positive message that, you have passion inside of you. You have excitement. It's a good thing. We just have to channel it, condition it to the right direction. Okay, now, there's, talking about fire, there's an interesting Rashi. In this week's Parsha, at the end of the Parsha, it talks about how we have to connect to Hashem. And the Pasuk says that we should connect to Hashem, Uladovka boy, cleave unto Him. And Rashi says, Ef shaloi makain. Is it possible to say you should cleave to Hashem? Because Valoi Eisheichlu. Don't we say about the Eibishter, he's a consuming fire? Elo, Rashi says, Hidav Talmidim uv'chachomim, cleave to students of Torah and to the sages. U'malani alecha killing back the boy, and I will consider it on your behalf as if you cleave to him. This is the end of this week's Parsha. Kapitel Yud Aleph, Posik Chav Beis. Now, I don't want to elaborate. The Posik, the words that we say that Hashem is a consuming fire, actually comes from Parshas Voschanan, last week's Parsha. And over there, the Pasuk said, talking about Hashem, and he says that the Eibishter destroys Ki Hashem Elikecha Eish Eichlahu Keil Kane. The Eibishter Kana. The Eibishter is a consuming fire as well as God. And what that means is that Hashem consumes the enemies. And over here, the Pasuk says, cleave unto Hashem, and then it asks, but Hashem is a consuming fire, so anything that would come close would become burnt up, so to speak. And he says, no, cleave unto the sages, and through the sages you become connected to Hashem. So we have to understand, what does it mean that through the sages you become connected to Hashem, even though we said that Hashem is a consuming fire. So one interpretation I want to say, based on Hayom Yom, there's a Sefer Hayom Yom that writes things for every single day that the Rebbe compiled. So in the 16th of Menachem Av and the 17th of Menachem Av, the Rebbe writes the following, that the Baal Shem Tov revealed Chassidus, and there was an order of how he revealed Chassidus. He rescued people. He was into Pidyon Shvuyim. There were people that were captives, and he redeemed them. But he says that when it comes to Pnimius HaTorah, the inner dimension of Torah, you have to be able to sell it, like present it to people, to influence them, that they should be attracted to it. And he says the following. I'm going to read you inside. The revealed part of Torah is called water, and so Vasagate, and the people go to water. Pnimius HaTorah nikra eish, the inner part of Torah is called a fire, and for fire up in the people are scared of fire. The fire after the mashpia gains from a kabel, the mashpia, the one who teaches Chassidus, the spiritual guide, the spiritual mentor, has to go to the recipient, to the student, so to speak. And sagen him and tell him, hab kein Meir in it, don't be scared. Because Hashem is a consuming fire. So why is that going to make you feel good? Based upon the things we said before, you might look at it in a negative way. Here we're saying the opposite. Don't be scared because godliness is a fire. Okay, that's what it says in the 16th of Menachem Av. In the 17th of Menachem Av, the next day, he gives an example, an elaboration of what does it mean that Pnimius HaTorah, the inner dimension of Torah, is a fire. He says that Tzemach Tzedek said, because Pnimius HaTorah, the inner dimension of Torah, gives a vitality to the Nigla of the Torah, as a lenta halacha, and vesa the zelba halacha, that the lenda noch mehr vesem schon in Gan Eden, gittas herein afeirel. When he learns a law, and he knows that this law is going to study also in heaven, it injects, it infuses the law, the technical dry law, Jewish law, with a fire. So, there's a lot what to speak about over here. And I think, on one level, everyone knows the Gemara that says that there's a pasuk, it says the Torah is oiz v'sashia. It's strong and weak. And the Gemara says that the Torah is oiz for the Yetzer Tov, for the Nefesh Elikis. It strengthens it, it empowers it. V'sashia to the Yetzer Hara, to the Nefesh Bahamas, it causes a weakness to the evil inclination. So it's the same thing over here. When we say that Elikus is Avaya, Elikecha, Eishechlo, as the pasuk from last week said, that's talking about negativity. Hashem is a consuming fire, he's a jealous God. That means that whatever is something which is opposition, which is negativity, in the end, will not be able to cause problems. So whatever's bad, in the end, will be consumed. And even that means it becomes transformed. But the point is, for something which is negative, the negativity is going to have to surrender in the end. We're going to get rid of anything which is bad, which is negative. Call it evil. We're not going to get into all subjects of evil right now, because really everything comes from Hashem. Eined Movadei. But when we say that Hashem Elikecha, Eish Echlohu, that pasuk is talking about Avodah Zarah, the people that serve idolatry, the people that are spreading lies, the people that are committing things that bring people to do the wrong thing, etc. That will be gotten rid of. But there's the positive side. And the positive side, when you say Hashem is a fire, it means everything that is beautiful about warmth, about love, about emotions, about care, about concern, about excitement. And that's what it means, that the mashpia, the tzugins and makabel, and we say that a likus is fire, which means we have to see the positive in fire, in excitement and in passion. Excitement, passion, caring and concern and having a good heart is what makes the world go round. You have to care. Do you care? Everything starts from caring. Care about a mitzvah. Care about another Jew. Care about the values. Once you care and you're full of concern, then it'll bring you to do something. The opposite of being cold and indifferent is passion and excitement about the right things. And this brings us to my father, Olav Shalom, and the Rebbe's father. When you read the story, my father, obviously, anyone who lived through World War II, and my father was in Shanghai. His parents died during the Holocaust. His sibling was killed during the Holocaust. So he was a lone survivor from his entire family. And he was in Shanghai during the war. Only people that really, really cared for Yiddishkeit were able to be strong and not only continue serving Hashem and doing all the right things with the right values and the right virtues, learning Torah and performing mitzvahs in the harshest circumstances like Shanghai, and conditions that they never imagined that they would have to live through. So they're passionate about Yiddishkeit. Then the Yiddishkeit survives. That's my father. When you read the story just this week, they printed in Chabad.org the journal, the diary of a chassid. His name was Rabbi Lemoiten, who took care of the Rebbe's father and the Rebbe's mother for a couple of years in Alma-Ata, where the Rebbe's father passed away. And you read about these chassidim who put themselves aside and had totally self-sacrifice to take care of others. Again, only people that were very passionate and full of love for Yiddishkeit, like the Rebbe's father, and the Hasidim who lived in that time, that looked after one another in the most dangerous circumstances, that who knows what could happen for them if they would find out that they were collecting money and using it to have a shul, to have a minyan, to have learning shiurim. All these things were happening, and they were illegal. And they had the Mesiras Nefesh to do that. And they paid money, pidyon shvuyim, thousands of rubles, to help a Jew that was in one place to move him to another place, etc., etc. So this is the lesson that we take from Parshas Eikev. And maybe we could say that this is what Rashi says over here, when he says that you should be midabel b'talmidei chachamim, even though we say that Hashem is Eish Eichla, maybe the pshat is like he says na yom yom, when you go to the Talmud Chacham, connect yourself to the Rabbeim, to the Tzaddikim, like the Rebbe's father, learn that Torah, then you will see the beauty of Yiddishkeit, how when you become part of Yiddishkeit, you will see that it adds and brings a warmth and a vitality and a passion to your life that you didn't know about before. And as he says in the Yom Yom, when you learn the halacha and you realize that you're going to learn this halacha, in the spiritual realms, it adds a whole new warmth. Now, practically speaking, what that means is, I say, take the Chassidus test. Take any subject. And there's so many stories, whether it's take the subject of Amalek, take the subject of Mini Melech, the mitzvah of appointing a king. Take the story of the spies, the Meraglim. Take the story of Korach. Whether it's a story in the Torah, any story, read it with all the commentaries, and then learn it according to the interpretation and the meaning of Pnimius HaTorah. You would be blown away. I'm putting it out there. This is a challenge for you. Take the Chassidus challenge. Learn any subject you want. Maidani. The Rebbe wrote a whole kutris in Yerush Choteres Chassidus HaMaidani. Take any subject, whether it's a mitzvah, derech mitzvah. That's why so many people today, especially people, are learning Chassidus, because the level of interpretation, the layer that they reach, a whole new appreciation. It's exactly as he says in Yom Yom. It injects a warmth and a vitality and a spirit and a fire into our Yiddishkeit. Eibush should help. We should all get excited, Ignite your fire. And the way to ignite your fire is to learning Pnimius HaTorah and connecting yourself to Chassidus and to the giants of Chassidus, the Rabbeim. My father was a Chassid, a son of a Chassid. So this is it. We see that Chassidus, like the Rebbe Rashab said, that Chassidus is Oir v'chayis nafshenu nitan lanu. Chassidus is a light and a vitality, and the vitality and the life and the energy and the passion and the warmth and the excitement all comes from the fire. And this is what it means. There's more to this idea that godliness and elikus is a fire. Maybe we'll leave it for another time. Maybe should help that my father should have only son Shama, as I mentioned before, and so too the Rebbe's father. The schus from the Baal Yemai Lula, the Rebbe's father, should be pale Yeshua's B'kerev Haaretz, that anybody was daf geholfen werden, was for the Indians on Zayn and Banachayim Bezeni, so geholfen werden should be helped. Take it from Yad Mamish, posting from my home. Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach, your man in Melbourne.